Shill, hater, biased, not objective. I'm in an echo chamber. I don't like different opinions. Grifter, woke liberal, radical leftist Democrat. These are just some of the common criticisms that I've gotten in the 2.5 years that I've been making content on this channel. But I've seen many of them repeated a lot in the last couple of weeks, thanks to my video on The Boys and how certain people didn't realize it was making fun of them until recently, my video on characters being replaced, and most recently, my video on Eric July and the Rippaverse. Those videos seemed to break outside of my normal reach and caused a few unhappy folks to disagree in my comments, as well as insult me and call me slurs, and to mass downvote my videos. Welcome to Actual Fandom. My name is Dane, and I've gotten a lot of new subscribers as well as new viewers in recent weeks. So I figured it's time to reintroduce myself, explain what this channel's about, what my goals are, and to respond to some of that criticism. First though, I want to let you know that this Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, I'll be streaming live to cover San Diego Comic-Con 2022. It'll be a good time. Show up, we'll just chill, talk about the announcements. I'll answer some questions from chat. For those of you who are new to the channel, I want to talk about my protocols for comments, disagreement, and how you can even challenge me to debate. If you don't like my protocols and my rules, that's fine. You don't have to be here on my channel. There are plenty of channels that'll tell you what you want to hear and let you say whatever you want to say. But I mean, even Truth Social doesn't allow you to talk shit on Donald Trump, so.
Truth Central.
Exactly.
Everybody has their terms of service, and this is my channel, and I want to keep my community feeling inclusive, safe, and welcome. If you go against that, you're not welcome in my community. I welcome disagreement and people with other views, but there are limits to that. As for comments, I welcome your feedback. In fact, that's what this video is about. However, not all feedback is worthwhile. An absolute deal breaker for whether you're allowed to comment on this channel is, any kind of hate speech, obviously, but also any kind of speech that makes my regular community and viewers feel, unwelcome or unsafe. There are some things that are just fact. Systemic racism exists. Trans people are valid. Donald Trump lost the election. Misinformation will not be tolerated. Like, honestly, if you comment and the best thing you can do is just insult me, for one thing, it's guaranteed something that someone has already commented 1,000 times before, so you're not being original and you're just wasting your time. And another thing, it comes off as desperate. You don't have an argument. You're just going to insult me. That's more about making you feel good than it is about actually engaging with my content or what I have to say. If you disagree with me and you're going to comment, say something substantive, which, by the way, many people have. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of comments that I've gotten over the last several videos, a couple of dozen people have made some pretty substantive comments that, gave me a little bit to think about. They didn't change my mind on anything because, all of it is stuff that I've already looked into. And those comments typically show this person is uninformed on certain subjects that I am informed on. So who am I and why do I make this content? My background includes I was a professional musician for several years, played in some rock bands, lifelong comic book, science fiction fan. I'm a writer and a journalist. I don't really work for any journalism outlets anymore, but in the past, I was a managing editor of a geek website, which is why I know a lot about how geek websites function. And how they, try to game the algorithm and, use certain keywords and so on to try to grab your attention, often sensationalized, outrage-based. Back during Occupy Wall Street, I wasn't really a political guy, but, I kind of understood what Occupy Wall Street was protesting about. I did think that corporations had too much power and that, there needed to be some changes made, although my understanding of politics then was pretty superficial. During that time, legendary comic book creator Frank Miller wrote a blog post where he said all kinds of, slanderous, crazy accusations about the protesters at Occupy Wall Street. And, after looking into that stuff, I realized that he had just kind of made a bunch of crap up and was blowing things way out of proportion and using some pretty hyperbolic language. So I decided to write an open letter to Frank Miller on a geek website that allowed fans to just, write blog posts or whatever. That article kind of took off. It ended up getting quoted by The Guardian UK, which is a, pretty big journalism outlet over there. This series of events launched me into comics and film journalism. I was asked to be managing editor of a newly launched geek website. I oversaw 14 contributors. I loved it. I loved the job. I loved the work. I loved being able to talk about whatever, I wanted as far as geek stuff goes. But eventually I was encouraged to start writing wild speculation and inflammatory headlines that just kind of went against my ethics. I didn't want to deceive people. I didn't want to use clickbait to just grab people's attention and get some cheap views. So I quit. After that, I became a journalist in the Oregon cannabis industry. It's a real job. I reviewed cannabis strains, products, I interviewed growers, dispensary owners, and I wrote news articles. Eventually, I was encouraged to start making wild speculation about the health benefits of cannabis. And as much as I think cannabis does have a lot of positive properties to it, it doesn't cure cancer. And, there can be some negative side effects to it. It's not for everyone. But my editors wanted me to make certain claims about cannabis's health benefits, which I just, once again, went against my ethics, and I didn't want to do it. They also refused to allow me to criticize the corporate invasion of cannabis farms and the exploitation of farm and dispensary workers. So I quit. So up until this point, I was basically just kind of a, passive liberal. I didn't really care much about politics. My personal ethics, led me to not be hateful or not to, I generally agreed with the idea that we should progress certain social movements and so on. But, I was pretty middle of the road liberal. But at the point that I quit my weed journalism job, I had started noticing a lot of things that really set me down a path of being more critical in my analysis of, the society we live in and certain, social hierarchies. And so it was at that point I became a leftist, and I decided that I wanted to start speaking out against what I saw as encroaching authoritarianism with Donald Trump. And now I know some of you are going to click off of this video right now, or you're commenting to tell me that the left are really the authoritarians, but that's a really shallow and kind of stupid understanding of politics. First up, I want to talk about some fair criticism that I got from my community and some friends that I asked them for criticism of my content. One of which is that I don't put enough sources for the things I talk about in the description of my videos. I did used to do that early on, all the time. I would put every source that I would cite, I would put it in there. But over time, I stopped doing that, and that's partly due to laziness, partly due to just trying to get content out, and it's can be a whole exhausting process to try and keep up with that. Part of it is that people who disagree with me aren't inclined to click on that and try and, learn something different. But maybe that's an unfair assumption. Another one is that I need to talk about different fandoms besides just comics and Star Wars and science fiction. And the reason I don't is because I'm not part of those fandoms. The reason I talk about the fandoms that I do is because I've been in them for a lot of years. I know a lot about them, and I can be a strong representative for them. Someone suggested I should cover stuff like the kaiju verse. I don't even know what that is. I would have to do a whole exhausting self-education on that just to be able to represent it in any decent way. And I just don't have the time to do that. Not really the interest either. However, pretty soon, a friend and I will be launching the Forced Adversity podcast. That's right. Forced Adversity is going to be a podcast. And in that podcast, eventually we will get to episodes where we cover all kinds of fandoms, whether I'm in them or not. And we'll have representatives, fans of those fandoms on the show to discuss the issues that they see within those fandoms. Another criticism that I got, which is valid, is that, in the past, some of my videos addressing, anti-fandom and anti-SJWs and such was pretty hostile, kind of outrage based. And that's fair. The intention of this channel when I started it was to kind of give back to chuds what they'd been putting out for years on YouTube. I didn't really see anybody aggressively pushing back against that stuff. And I wanted to show that you don't have to be kind of like a soy boy, snowflake, soft boy liberal to believe in compassion and to validate people's identities and lived experiences. So it was intentional to be hostile and to be more aggressive and assertive. It was a bit performative. I've talked about this before. It was also a little bit of overcompensation for the fact that I had zero experience on camera, talking about these things in public or anything like that. So I was pretty nervous for quite a while. I literally wore a mask for a while. I've calmed down a lot. If you watched my recent Hulk video, at the very end, I talk about pretty much this and how my goal is to, just be more chill, which I like to think the last few videos have been. This is more my personality. Like if you hung out with me, in real life, so to speak, this is about how I would be. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not always being super aggressive and assertive. I can be, and I do believe in aggressively advocating for, the things that I believe in, and for, people to be treated fairly, whether it's in fandoms or society at large. But I also don't want to be performatively angry all the time. It's probably true that I do turn some people off with that tone. But hopefully you see what I've been trying to do the last few videos, where I'm just kind of chill and talking to the camera. Another criticism, which I think is kind of a joke, but also fair, is that I don't put out enough content. And for a long time, pretty much 2.5 years, it was hard for me to stay consistent on content. But this week will be 2 weeks in a row that I've gotten a video out on Monday and Friday, and I'm hoping to stick to that going forward. And once I get the hang of getting 2 videos out a week like that, I might start doing a weekly stream like on Wednesday. So we'll see. Believe me, I'm trying to get more content out. I've got a lot of stuff to say. All right, now moving on to criticism that is less supportive and more disagreeable with what I have to say. Am I a shill for Warner Brothers, Disney, Star Trek, so on? I mean, no. The reason some people think that I'm a shill is because I don't talk much about the stuff that I don't like. That's not really the point of this channel, and never has been. I'll talk about the things that I do like. I'll talk about the things I connect with. But when it comes to stuff that I'm not really interested in, like Ms. Marvel comics, for example, I've read some. They're enjoyable, but it's not really aimed at me. I'm not the target demographic, but I know that target demographic does, in many cases, appreciate Ms. Marvel comics. I've seen it. So who am I to get on my YouTube channel and start talking shit on it because I don't really care for it? There's plenty of that. Essentially, when you're saying I'm a shill, you're wanting me to just be more negative about things when there's plenty of that around. And so you're asking me to kind of conform. There's some stuff in Star Wars that I'm not a huge fan of, but broadly, I'm a fan of Star Wars as a property. And I'm not so arrogant as to think that my negative opinion on stuff should be shoved down other people's throats. And there's a lot of YouTubers who do think that, and that's almost exclusively what their content is. I'm trying to do something different. Generally, if I'm a shill for fandoms at large, the people within fandoms. I want fandoms to be an inclusive and fun place. There's a lot of fandom communities that are pretty hostile, and if you look at them, they're just like nonstop negativity and cynicism. And look, I can be cynical with the rest of them, believe me, but it's just not what I want to do with this channel. I don't want to spend my days trying to find the most cynical, negative, sensational thing to say about stuff that just maybe I don't enjoy it. Maybe I even think it sucks, but other people do enjoy it and don't think it sucks. So good for them. Let them have that. One that I got from the Rippaverse video is that I just hate indie comics and I want to see them fail. No. There's this weird misconception within Comicsgate and apparently Rippaverse too, that they have a monopoly on indie comics, and that if you don't like their stuff, you're just against indie and you support corporate comics. That's not true at all. At least 2 of these boxes back here are full of indie comics. I read a lot of indie comics. Maybe I'll talk about them sometime. Maybe I'll bring some up and show them on stream Saturday. I don't know. But I love indie. These days, I probably read more indie than I do Marvel or DC. My issue with those specific indie comics is more how they market them, which is all about, the woke SJWs are ruining comics, so here's our indie comic. I believe, like Mark Brooks said when I interviewed him on this channel, that if you have to do that, it's, a sign of lack of confidence in your content. You should just be able to go, here's the book I made. Here's what it's about. If you relate to it, buy it. If this sounds cool, buy it. Sorry, I burped. So no, I don't hate indie comics. I support indie comics. I have several indie comics friends, people in my community who make indie comics. There you go. I'm a woke moralist.
Up yours, woke moralists.
Now, as I've talked about on this channel, I don't think that woke is a valid criticism. I'll link that video here. It's not. It's just not a valid criticism. It's lazy. It's a thought-terminating cliche. And if you think it is valid, you can email me, actualfandom@gmail.com, and we can discuss it on stream. which is another criticism that I've gotten, that I live in an echo chamber and that I don't want to hear other opinions and so on and so forth. It's not true. When it comes to comments under my videos, sometimes they're just so fucking dumb that they don't really warrant my attention or a sincere response. So sometimes I'll troll because some of the comments by people who disagree with me are just so vapid and dumb and like beyond satire. Now, like I said, there have been comments that are, like, wow, this guy's making a strongly worded argument. Maybe not the argument itself is strong, but I'd be willing to talk to this guy if he wanted to talk. I'm not going to do it in text in comments, though. So once again, email me if you really want to discuss our disagreements. We'll do it on stream. I'm not doing a keyboard warrior debate thing. Am I a radical leftist Democrat? That phrase makes no sense. One thing that I see commonly from the right is that they think that leftist and liberal are the same thing. Some people think that Joe Biden is a radical leftist, which, there's no point in even responding to someone like that, to be honest, because their understanding of political ideology is thin enough to, it would basically mean that I'm having to give them a full education. And now I understand that that's what Republicans have pushed for years. Republican conservative content has been pushing the Democrats are radical leftists and stuff like that. When it's like, man, if the Democrats had as many radical leftists in it as you guys like to think it does, that'd be awesome. But generally, people like me, leftists, are not really happy broadly with the Democrats. It's just that it's the better of the two options. Just because I'm on the left does not mean that I'm a Democrat. And if you think it does, once again, you need to kind of like deepen your understanding of political ideology and, what this stuff means. Here's one that I think is pretty funny, and I've gotten it a lot. I'm biased. Well, you got me there. I am biased. So are you. If you think that you don't have bias, you don't know what the word means. Every human being has bias. Saying you're biased is not a valid criticism because everybody has bias. It's just the way it is. Nobody is an objective computer who just analyzes like a fucking robot and spits out facts and facts only. Nobody does that. And that ties into another one that I've gotten a lot, that I'm not being objective. Nope, neither are you. All anyone can do is, be as rational from their subjectivity as they possibly can. I like to believe that my subjectivity is founded in as much facts and reality as it possibly can be. I'm a skeptic. I like to research claims and look for primary sources on news items. As I said, I've got a background in journalism. And I trust myself on that. I trust myself more than, some guy with first name, bunch of numbers on Twitter or in my comment section who's telling me that I'm not being objective. I try to disprove my own biases when possible. Sometimes I do. That's how I've gotten to the positions that I have now, is spending years examining my biases and my preconceived notions and seeing, does this hold up to scrutiny? Is this valid? But I did a lot of that work before I ever started a YouTube channel. And I've done a lot since then too. But generally, I don't speak on things unless I've put a lot of time and effort into thinking about them, and I trust my process. You're not objective either. And if you think you are, you don't know what that word means. I'm in an echo chamber. That's interesting because it's often said from people who seem to have fallen out of their echo chamber temporarily and found my video. Not all opinions are valid, okay? And I know that's hard for some of you to hear. You telling me that you think a Marvel movie or show or Star Wars sucks and that it's woke, it's garbage, it's trash. I can tell a lot of you really, really believe that by saying that, it's just factually, objectively true. And it's not. If it was objective, everyone would agree. That's how that works. But because people have disagreements on these things, that inherently means they are subjective opinions. Is my subjective opinion more valid than yours? Not necessarily. Maybe sometimes. We can debate about it. Email me. Another one is that I misunderstand what anti-sjws and what I call anti-fans complain about. That they just think that comics should be apolitical, that media should be apolitical. And that's just silly. Media, comics have always had some kind of politics in them to some degree or another. The only difference is you don't recognize certain things as politics. John Kent Superman being queer is not political. Queer people existing is not political. You've just swallowed the narrative that queer people existing or being represented is inherently political. And that's silly. The media that we consume, comics, shows and stuff, should and has always reflected real life, especially when it comes to Marvel Comics. I've done a video about that too. In summary, when it comes to differing opinions, they're welcome. If you can leave a comment in a measured, coherent, substantive way that explains your position and it doesn't invalidate the existence or identities of the people in my community, it's welcome. On the other hand, if you leave a shitty comment or you're trolling or calling me slurs or something like that, I reserve the right to put you on blast, whether it's on Twitter or in a future video. So keep that in mind. And also, slurs will just be reported to YouTube. So, it doesn't really do anyone any good, especially you. Insults don't bother me. I know you really want them to, but insulting me it doesn't work. I wouldn't be doing this kind of thing if your insults had an effect on how I feel about myself or what I'm doing or anything like that. As I say, actual fandom is about being an ambassador, not a gatekeeper. I'm not trying to tell anyone who has a different opinion from me or who says that Marvel sucks or anything like that, that you can't hold that opinion. I'm not telling you not to have that opinion. I'm just trying to get people to think about things with a little more nuance, a little more context, use a little bit more critical thinking. Because I feel like YouTube has become overrun with people that just think that woke is all you need to say about something in order to criticize it, and that it's somehow effective criticism. And I think that hasn't been challenged enough, and I want to challenge it. So if you accept the challenge and you want to talk to me on stream, friendly chat about what woke means and why you think that's inherently bad, let's do it. The problem is a lot of the claims that I see are, like the characters are being replaced video, people that don't really know what they're talking about when it comes to comics especially. So if you think you know more than me about comic book lore and history and stuff, and that, you can challenge me on that stuff, email me. Actual fandom means be an ambassador, not a gatekeeper. I think it's a far better use of our time as nerds, geeks, fans, whatever you want to call yourself, to rather than just shit on things incessantly. I know that's what the YouTube algorithm prefers, and I know it's the easiest way to make content without having to really think about anything or say anything substantive. I'm challenging you to think about things a little more critically, to not just listen to what your favorite group of YouTubers say and just take that opinion on as your own opinion, because I can tell that's what a lot of you do. If you're a fan and you don't like something, cool. That's your subjective opinion, and you have a right to it. If someone asks me, what do you think about Ms. Marvel comics? I'm not going to go, it was kind of boring. I think, it's kind of run of the mill, just not very interesting to me. That only serves me. I'm just putting my opinion into this person's brain and possibly preventing them from looking into something that they might enjoy. Alternatively, I could say, she's a Pakistani American teenage Muslim girl. She's got stretchy powers. She can grow her fists and feet real big. And if that's the kind of thing you're interested in, you should definitely check it out. That's why there's so many different comics with so many different perspectives, because there's something for everyone. And if you don't like something, find what you do like. It's weird to me that so many people spend so much time talking about what they hate, what sucks, what's woke trash. Like, it really just comes off as virtue signaling. So that's what I mean when I say be an ambassador, not a gatekeeper. I welcome you to the channel, whether you're a new subscriber who genuinely appreciates what I'm doing, or you're somebody who just wants to hate watch me. You're welcome. You're not welcome to say just anything you want in my comments. I'm not going to, give time to people who are, being shitty to me or other people in my comments section. I'm not going to allow you to spread misinformation or hate speech. If you watch my recent chat with T-Rev from the Fandom Menace, you'll see that I'm willing to engage with people who are, able to do so in a civil manner. My goals are not to praise corporate media or to downplay indie comics. But when corporate media is so often used to denigrate others, to gatekeep, and when indie comics are so often used to, bash other comics and say that this is woke trash and look how great this indie comic is or whatever, I think that sucks. I challenge you to be a better fan than that. Have whatever opinions you want, but why do you have to negate the opinions of others? Please subscribe and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And again, I'll be streaming this Saturday, covering all the announcements out of Comic-Con at 4 p.m. Pacific time.